Riley. I'm an industrial engineering senior at Georgia Tech. And for my physics lecture review, I watched the professor debate on the topic, do we live in a simulation? And so this was hosted by a physics group at Georgia Tech. And they had a panel of professors discussing, principally, first, they were asked, do you believe in a simulation? They also surveyed the crowd there to get an understanding of whether they believed that they lived in a simulation before and after the presentation, which I found to be really interesting. But the talk itself was grounded in the sense that if these educated professors could support some of this ideology with their physics backgrounds or other backgrounds related to simulation theory. So the School of Physics and Society of Physics students, during this lecture, I found that the lecture itself was very interesting and very intriguing because I personally, being an industrial engineering student, am not always challenged to think critically about the simulation components that go into a grand scheme like this. I have taken simulation coursework and I've simulated certain scenarios and flows with Simio software. However, I've never been tasked with thinking about this because it's not within our educational sphere. So first, what did I learn that I didn't know? So when I was watching this, I learned that people believe that we do live in a simulation because I kind of thought that those people didn't exist. These are very smart individuals, and they have a great concept of uh, a wide variety of things, doctorates in physics that I simply can't understand. But I truly did not believe that people grasp this as a real theory or real theology almost. This concept of like simulation living. I also was very interested by the idea that being knowledgeable about living in a simulation could potentially, if we are to be living in a simulation, affect the way that we move through the simulation and the way that we interact with other components, thus disrupting the system itself. So, kind of that aspect of like self knowledge is power to the individual within the system. I thought that was a really interesting frame of reference. What did I learn that I already knew? I already have a pretty decent background with simulation software from ISY 3044, which is simulation introduction. So you have Arena and Simio softwares. And I heard them talk a lot about how do you create a simulation, like what components go into them. And I do have a decent understanding of that from my coursework. Um, and so it was interesting to hear them frame it from a physics perspective, from the perspective of religion, even. I do have a decent understanding, obviously, of the softwares and kind of the components that are going into them. You'll simulate a certain arrival rate to be Poisson versus binomial distribution versus uniform, and that can change the results. But I found it to be really interesting to think of things from their frame of reference without maybe specific knowledge of how to use those softwares, but like a grander, high level skill. Something in the lecture that sparked my curiosity. I really think what sparked my curiosity was the concept that self knowledge of the system could influence the outcome. I did even start to Google more articles to tie back into did this follow up on the topics outside of the lecture? Yes. I've heard of Elon Musk introduce this theory before, but I started to do research on that concept of self knowledge within a system affecting the output in the same sense that if you have a hypothesis and you're conducting an experiment and you're doing research, if a certain person within your experiment is understanding and it's not a blind study for everyone, that can impact the results. So I thought that that was a really interesting mind hole to dig into. Um, in terms of how this related to my own area of study, I thought it was really interesting because I'm still taking simulation course right now, and I'm actually using simulation theory within my senior design team and simulating some of our distribution routes for a specific company within the healthcare industry. And so I really like that this tied back to some industrial engineering flow. I don't always feel that physics 2 is super relevant to my education at Georgia Tech, getting an engineering degree. However, I found this to be a really engaging lecture, and a great mind delve and time to ask myself what I really think and challenge myself to think critically about some of the structure of the universe, even beyond um, what we've learned in school. So, really great. Thank you for following along. Again, I'm Jill Riley. Hope you have a great day.